The Kiseng were part of the Chun-min social class, the so-called vulgar commoners during the Joseon Dynasty. The Chun-min had what was called unclean professions like butchers, shamans, shoemakers, metal workers, magicians, prostitutes, jailkeepers, and performers. In this social class is found the Baekjeong, people who were descendants of Jurchen or other nomadic tribes since early Goryeo. Kiseng were the female entertainers, courtesans of the Yangban. The Yangban were part of the traditional ruling class of Joseon. They were mainly composed of highly educated civil servants and military officers. The title of Yangban was given to those who passed the state-sponsored civil service exams called Gwago. These exams tested knowledge of the Confucian classics, history, and poetry. A Yangban was usually assigned to a government post. It is said that there were at most 100 positions open for thousands of applicants. Indentured servants, Baekjeong, and children of concubines couldn't take the exams. Kiseng were established in Goryeo and further evolved during the Joseon Dynasty. They are similar to the geishas in Japan. They were trained in the fine arts, poetry, and prose, and somewhat respected as educated artists. Their roles included medical care and needlework. Like the nobi, the slave class, the government kept a registry of Kiseng. The Kiseng and nobi could be released from their position in society, but at a hefty price paid to the government. Contrary to popular belief, a Kiseng wasn't a prostitute, but occasionally would engage in sexual activities with particularly wealthy and powerful Yangban patrons. The career of a Kiseng peaked at age 16 or 17 and was mostly over by age 22. By law, they had to retire at age 50. In the later period of Joseon, a three-tiered system for dividing Kiseng developed. The highest was the ilpe Kiseng, who sang and danced at upper-class feasts. They were not allowed to entertain past their 20s, but they could still work in dressmaking and medicine until mandatory retirement at 50. The Hengsu Kiseng was the leader of the Kiseng for a certain district and in charge of training new Kiseng. The lowest tier Kiseng were the Sampe. They were forbidden to perform the songs and dances of the highest tier Ilpe. Some Kiseng amassed considerable wealth, but they were the exception. Daughters of Kiseng would inherit their mother's status, or they were sold into the wealthy families by their own families who couldn't afford to raise them. Some women from the Yangban could become Kiseng because they violated the sexual customs of Joseon. They were trained in a Kyobang, a training institute for Kiseng. They studied for 3 years. Their education covered, as mentioned earlier, poetry, dance, music, and art. The best school was found in Pyongyang. Because Kiseng were slaves of the government, starting in 1650, their lives were regulated by offices known as hojang. They were in charge of the Kiseng registry and making sure no Kiseng fled the district. Kiseng had to fulfill all patrons' requests unless they had previously notified the hojang. Kiseng were expected to appear for bi-monthly inspections. They were also expected to continue learning new music and dances. When there were problems between a Kiseng and a client, the Hengsu Kiseng generally took care of the situation. A Kiseng house was usually downtown near the market. The houses would have a nice view and had some kind of landscaping and ornamental pools. Because Kiseng frequented so many establishments, they were very knowledgeable of local affairs. They were a key source of intelligence in the area. Kiseng were also used to entertain foreign dignitaries usually Chinese, and accompanied them as they traveled throughout the land. There weren't as many Kiseng as one would think. They numbered at most a few thousands throughout the country. In the capital Hansong, modern-day Seoul, there were around 1,000 Kiseng. Their training was the hardest, and those who didn't do well would be easily replaced by Kiseng from other provinces. There were many Kiseng in the old capitals of Kaesong and Pyongyang, as well as around military camps. Kiseng were also found in inns, which provided shelter and food to travelers along the country's big roads. Kiseng from different regions had their own distinct identities. Those from Jinju were skilled at the gommu, a traditional sword dance. Those from Jeju were good equestrian. Those from the Guangdong region were good at reciting poems about the region's scenery, while those of the Honam region were trained in pansuri, a genre of musical storytelling performed by a singer and a drummer. Hwang Jini is one of the most popular Kiseng of the Joseon Dynasty. She lived during the reign of King Jungjong, the 11th ruler of Joseon. Hwang Jini was quick-witted, very intelligent, exceptionally beautiful, independent, and assertive. A myth developed around her, and she inspired novels, films, musicals, and a TV series in South Korea. She was born into a noble family in Kaesong. There are different theories of why she became a Kiseng. Maybe she was a daughter of a Kiseng, or maybe she became one because of a failed marriage. In any case, she became a Kiseng and learned dance, music, and arts, as well as poetry. These subjects were not taught to most women in the kingdom at the time. The legend goes that when men came to visit her, she posed them a riddle. If a patron could solve her riddle, he was allowed to spend private time with her. Her sijo, Korean traditional poem form, are said to show craftsmanship of words and musical arrangements. Here's one of them. I will divide this long November night, and coil by coil, lay it under a warm spring blanket, and roll by roll, when my frozen love returns, I will unfold it to the night. The Gabo Reform of 1895 abolished the Joseon class system. All slaves and Kiseng were freed. Some Kiseng poetry and artwork survive until today. For example, the poems of Hwang Jini and Juk Hyang's paintings of plants and flowers. Kiseng produced many artwork but were deemed not valuable enough to keep. The Kiseng have played important roles in Joseon popular literature. They often had a leading roles in novels and pansuri. They had a unique role in Joseon. They were women who could move somewhat freely in society. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, like, and leave a comment.